Hello, everyone, and welcome to the League One podcast from the lower league. Look, I'm sure you've all been woken up by that intro there, so you're bobbing your head along, Seb.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. It's quite a catchy tune. Yeah,
Catchy, it's loud enough. It's definitely loud enough.
True. Yeah,
So I am Jamie Johnson alongside me, as you've heard there. As always, Seb, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, good. Thank you. Did a nice weekend.
Wasn't too bad. I was at Lincoln United, Step 5, FA Vars game on Saturday. They won on penalties against Deal Town. So that a bit of excitement for the weekend. A penalty shootout there. And yeah, so Lincoln United, one of the teams you report on there through to the semi-finals now with the FA Vars. So if you want lots of stuff about that, the Twitter, my Twitter, jjohnson_16, I'll plug that nice and early.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Good stuff over there with that. But
I mean, yeah. Unfortunate for you, you saw the side that. You saw one side of Lincoln. I saw the other side of Lincoln. But
well, we will get to that hastily because there's no other place to start. The first half of the podcast we'll be looking back on Saturday's results, and then in the second half we'll look ahead to almost a full round of fixtures on Tuesday. There's 10 games on Tuesday night, but there's no other place to start than the game you was at, Seb. Barnsley 1 and Lincoln. Can we count them 5? I mean, I'll just let you go. I couldn't believe it as I was sat at Ashby Avenue going, oh, it's 1-0. Oh, it's 2. It's what is going? This flash score's wrong. I can't believe it. And no, it was right. 5-1 to Lincoln.
Yep. It was right. Do we have to start with this one, Jamie? Could we not have just saved it?
It's the only game with goals this week.
Could we not have saved it right till the end? You know,
just a couple of minutes at the end when we're running out of time.
Having to make me go through this suffering right at the start of the podcast. No, it was, I guess a different story for both clubs. Lincoln, really good. Barnsley, really poor. That's in terms of sort of short summary.
And we'll move on to our next.
No. To be fair, I think Lincoln came with a plan and they executed it really well. Slightly changed in that second half. Barnes had a lot of possession in the back line in that first half, a lot of sort of time on the ball to pick out a pass. And then they made a sub at half time, brought on Moylan, and you could just see from the off that they were coming with a bit more intent in terms of pressing. They were on the front foot a lot more, and as a result, scored 4 goals in that second half, which I'm not quite sure anyone saw coming. Barnsley, we know, have been used to slower starts so far this season, been used to going 1-0 down. So when we went 1-0 down, it wasn't sort of action stations as such. It wasn't sort of a disaster, really, because we knew that's happened so many times before this season. And in fact, our best spell of the game was just before half-time. So if anything, really, half-time came at the wrong time because the Reds were just starting to find a little bit of rhythm, nice passages of play. And then Lincoln came out a little bit more attacking in the second half and, sort of blew us away, including Jack Moylan. I mean, what a sort of a masterstroke by the gaffer bringing him on at half-time. He grabbed 2 goals in the second half and almost got a third as well. His shot sort of saved and then the rebound was deflected in for the 5th. So almost probably should have got a third as well. But just poured it at the office for Barnsley. As for Lincoln, the form side in the league at the moment, I was mightily impressed by them, really. I think Scabala's done a great job. You know, they are the form side in the division, but I think a lot of Reds fans thought it would be not necessarily a walk in the park, but pretty easy, you know, given that they are a little bit of a way off the playoffs and far away from relegation. So they've not really got anything to be concerned about, have Lincoln, but they're showing their qualities massively. And in particular, I know you've seen Lincoln a couple of times. Their wing backs impressed me. Harkett Fairchild on the left and on the right, what's he called? That's Thompson, yeah. He got the assist for the first goal. So for me, I think the wing backs definitely impressed the most for Scabala's side.
Yeah, definitely. And that's sort of it's been the key, I guess, since I started sort of doing work on Lincoln City games for 2 years. It's always been through the wing backs, through Mark Kennedy, and it's now through Scabali, even though they're probably a bit even more advanced than they were before. You mentioned Jack Moylan. Because he sort of was announced at the end of the summer transfer window, coming over from Shelbourne in Ireland, but the transfer wasn't completed until January 1st. Their season ends sort of autumn time, so he came in at the end of their season, which coincides January transfer window. And I spoke to a guy called Bill, who runs the Irish football blog over in Ireland, sort of get their perspective on it. And one of the things he called him was the Irish Messi, and I thought that's at the time I was that's bold.
Bold statement there. Yeah.
The 2 goals he scored, if people haven't seen them, it's definitely worth checking out. The first one, he sort of mazes through 5 or 6 Barnsley players and before slotting the ball home. And then his second one's about 40 yards out and he sort of drills it into the bottom corner. He's sort of been a bit of a revelation in the last couple of games. It was his first start against Stevenage last week in the goalless draw and played really well by all accounts. And then the next game, he drops to the bench and comes on at half time, changes the game, and sort of produces a brace as well. And I guess that's what you want, isn't it, from someone that you, as a manager with Scabala, he dropped him onto the bench, but then as soon as he comes in, he's sort of got a point to prove in a way. Really, really fantastic stuff from him. Joe Taylor's goal at the very first goal, I thought that was really nice. Nicely taken, but one-touch football, wasn't it, Mandreo? Sort of a long ball.
Yeah.
And a tap across, and that's sort of the Scabala model. He's always talking about one-touch football, counter-pressing, this, that. Is sort of like the style, and if this is what it looks like, then it's happy days for Lincoln fans, isn't it? They're 11 games unbeaten now.
I'm just going to pick up what you said on Moylan, just to add. Well, I mentioned earlier he could have had a third. Had he got that third goal, it was more or less a replica of his first goal. So just weaving past about 4 or 5 players. His shot wasn't quite on target. It was as the rebound was in, but he just sort of just danced past loads of players. Couldn't get near him at all. So he definitely made a proper impact from the bench. Did Moylan. What sort of, is he a midfielder or is he a bit more of an attacker?
Well, this is the thing. When he came in, he's a striker, he's a winger, and he's an attacking midfielder. So I guess a number 10, and he's been playing in the 8 for Lincoln because there's no midfielders. Hamilton's out for the season. McGrandles is out for the season, and Ted Bishop picked up a niggle in the week. So they had 3 centre mids out, which left them 1 centre mid, which is Ethan Orahan. And they started Mandreo, didn't they, alongside him, and then switched Moylan into that position at half time. But it's the deepest he's ever played in that centre mid. But he's sort of been a bit of a revelation, like I said, in that position, pulling back deeper than, like I said, by his own admission after that Stevenage game, he said, "Yeah, I've never played this deep before." But he's still creating chances and obviously putting a couple in the back of the net. The consolation goal from a Barnsley perspective was Adam Phillips, of course, the player of the month in February. The way obviously you were there, Seb, see if you agree with this, but the way I sort of read the stats, it was a Lincoln domination in terms of chances and attacking play, but the possession was all Barnsley's.
Domination for Lincoln? What do you mean? No, Lincoln, but just Barnsley did not know what to do with them. Really, they were just all over the place, particularly in that second half because of the substitute of Moylan. But they just, even in the first half, they just could not get near the 2 wing backs. Hackett, Fairchild on the left was sort of a constant force on that left-hand channel, which Williams just couldn't deal with. It was get beaten every single time. But yeah, it was pretty disappointing, really, from Barnsley, given that they had got 4 points against against Derby and Bolton in the previous 2 games at home. So pretty good results in terms of home form, and beat Wickham away as well pretty comfortably. And then to just go and get that result at home, it's not a great look at all. You wonder whether there's still that sort of hangover from the late consolation of the equaliser on Tuesday against Bolton, having been 2-0 up to then draw the game 2-2. You wonder how much sort of the psychological impact it had on the players, because even right from the off, we just didn't look at the races at all, really. But yeah, you spoke about Adam Phillips there on the score sheet. his goal actually came from. Well, the ball was put back into the box for him to tap in, but the cross before that, Marsh and Cosgrove, Barnsley's two strikers on the pitch, was just had a bite of the cross in. They just sort of swung for it and just both missed. It was sort of comical, really. Cosgrove got promotion with Plymouth last season from League One, and Marsh, I know he's only young, but he's been scoring for fun in the 23s. So both sort of are pretty established, if you like. So it's a little bit embarrassing. I guess the goal that came eventually from that period of play sort of salvaged them a little bit, but there was a couple more chances at the end that Cosgrove missed as well. So Barnsley, even in the second half, were creating chances, just weren't putting them to bed. And as a result of trying to push forward, then they were leaving more and more gaps at the back, which Lincoln exploited perfectly, really. But yeah, I hope it's just a blip, because we were sort of in the talks of the top two, and now we've dropped all the way down to fifth. Yeah. I guess shows how tight the top six is. But if we want to be serious about a top two charge, and we have to just see that as a one game blip, and then just carry on and win the next two. We play Carlisle away Tuesday, and then at home we've got Cheltenham. So two sort of sides within that relegation zone who will be battling for their life. So they don't get any easier, really. Yeah. But yeah, an entertaining game. An entertaining game, but not necessarily for me as a Barnsley fan. But yeah, Lincoln are definitely ones to watch. Is what I got from that game.
Yeah, they're sort of knocking on the doors of the playoffs. They just got the table in front of me. They're 6 points off the playoffs now. Stevenage do have a game in hand, is worth mentioning. Oxford 1 point off the playoff spots, and Blackpool 3 points. So they're sort of chasing 4 points, I beg your pardon, Blackpool. So they're up to 9th now, Lincoln. They're really in that chasing pack, sort of went above Leyton Orient after their result. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. They've sort of come out of nowhere, I guess, in this run they've had, 11 games unbeaten, and they're now knocking on the door of those playoffs. Obviously, just above that, a couple of the teams you mentioned is who we'll go to next, Derby and Bolton. We'll start at Bolton, and I guess the positive from a Barnsley perspective, I beg your pardon, is that Bolton dropped some more points. They drew 2-2 with Exeter. They sort of rescued a point right at the end, didn't they? But they seem to be struggling defensively. They're sort of letting goals in for fun. They conceded 2 here, 2 obviously against Barnsley. It's only a few weeks ago that they conceded 4 against Blackpool. So a little bit of an issue perhaps to look at there, but they've got the capability to score goals, haven't they? And that, do you think that is what'll sort of keep them in that race?
Yeah, possibly. I just look at the timings of goal for me. So they got a 1-0 lead through Paris Magoma in on the 33rd minute in that first half, and then Exeter equalised on 46 minutes, so just a minute after half time. Then they got a second on 49, so less than 5 minutes after half time. And
just on that, actually, have you seen the goal after half time? Because it was, when I say straight from kickoff, 2 passes from kickoff.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable, really unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's not good look for Bolton at all. You know, you've just had the halftime team talk. You've just been, been given a couple more instructions from the gaffer. You know, sort of his reinforced messages, and then to concede that, as you said, more or less straight from kickoff, and then again just 3 minutes later from that same player. It's not a great sign, really. They did well to sort of rescue something, but it did take them close to 40 minutes for them to get an equalising goal. But they did through toll towards the end. But yeah, I think that the timings of the goal for me are pretty crucial.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think they'll be happy with the point overall, but the way that they've come out from the halftime break to concede 2 early goals in that second 45 period, I think Ian Evatt will be really disappointed with that. And in terms of what he does for the league table, it doesn't impact them that much, but it just means sort of the gap between them and Peterborough and Barnsley has sort of, it's not got any wide, if you like, because they only picked up 1 point rather than 3. And had they got 3, then I think they would have jump step Derby into second. So they remain third for now. And I think on the balance of play that they probably would be happy with a point against Exeter, really. Yeah. What do you reckon then?
Yeah, that makes sense. I've just had a look myself at the game they had obviously before against Barnsley, and they conceded in the 47th minute there, so it sort of adds a little bit to that. It's an interesting, wasn't it? The wheels are coming off slightly, I guess. They are third, which is worth mentioning. Only 1 point off the automatic, so they're there and thereabouts. But obviously, they've got Peterborough and Barnsley breathing down their necks, and they've got a huge game against Oxford on Tuesday, which is on Sky. Actually, we'll talk about that come the second half. But it's a really interesting sort of situation they're in because they need to pick up points, and they've got Oxford in this game, and then they're away at Derby on Saturday, the 16th. Now that's
big game.
One of the biggest games, I guess, of the run-in. And then they've got Stevenage after that. Last game of the season's against Peterborough, don't forget as well. So it's a really interesting few games they've got in that run-in. And we're in run-in territory now, aren't we? So you're looking at the 9 games left, 9 games left for teams, and the need to sort of pick up some consistency, because that seems to be the issue.
Yeah, but it's a funny one, Bolton, because as you just mentioned there, they are still third in the table and only 1 point off Derby in second. But in terms of the sort of recent results, if we look at the last month, draw away at Exeter, draw away at Barnsley. They won at home to Cambridge, but then losing away at Wigan, losing away at Blackpool, and then drawing against Charlton a couple of weeks before that, and Northampton before that again. So they're not actually in that great a form.
Yeah, it's just inconsistent, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're not in a bad league position. That's sort of the weird thing, really. They've not won many, but they've not really dropped out of sort of the running. Whether that's because sort of the other sides are also not a little bit inconsistent as well. But it's just a little bit weird that we're sort of talking, not sort of criticising, but just discussing Bolton's sort of inconsistency. But they're still sitting in third place, 1 point away from automatic places. So it's a little bit weird, really, because they haven't really kicked on in these past couple of weeks. But they're still sitting third, and it is a massive game at the weekend, which we will come on to chat a little bit. In fact, they've got probably 3 big weekends in the next fortnight or so.
Yeah, that's definitely one to listen to Callum and Sam's podcast on Thursday, because they're looking ahead to that game on Saturday. I mean, what a game that is going to be, sort of with the title race, the automatics race, I beg your pardon, in mind. The only team in that top sort of section, other than Peterborough, we'll get to it, is Derby, of course, and they did win at the weekend. They're sort of the opposite of an inconsistent Bolton. They've really picked up when they've needed to, and it's 2 3-0 wins in a row for them. The last 5 wins Derby have picked up, they've all been clean sheets, so it's something interesting. They don't concede, they're winning games. 2-2 for Dwight Gale, which is just wonderful. And Waghorn, he's not started yet since returning from injury, but he did score in that one. So positive signs there from Derby. Not only that they've won again, not only that they've kept another clean sheet, but they've got 2 strikers now firing the goals.
Yeah, I mean, eyebrows I think were raised, including by us when Dwight Gale signed for Derby. They needed a striker to come in and sort of fill the gap of Collins, who had just got an injury. Waghorn was, of course, out before that as well, and to see him scoring his second goal in as many games for the Rams is pretty impressive. It shows that sort of he does know where the back of that is, and that's proven. We know that, although his scoring records in the past year or so haven't looked that great. But yeah, Derby are just sort of just tankering on, really, just soldiering on, showing good performances. They lost against Barnsley, but they've come back from that with 2 pretty dominant victories within that, and the game on Saturday against Bristol Rovers. So Tom Parkhausen scored one of the 3 goals, and he was set up by Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, and that's Mendes-Lang's 15th assist of the season, and it's a club record assist in one league, and we've not even finished the season yet.
That's one hell of a stat, so that's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Craig Bryson got 14 in the 2013-14 season, but he's on 15 now with 9 games to play. So pretty impressive. 15 assists from Mendes-Lang, who probably is Derby's best player, but didn't score at the weekend. It was the 2 strikers, as you said, and as well as Barkhausen.
Yeah.
But yeah, just ticking along nicely for Derby, just picking up form. They're just in a bit of a precarious position, a little bit like Bolton, that if they slip up at any point, there's just 2 or 3 teams just below them that is ready to jump at any moment and ready to pounce on any drop points. But Derby ticking along nicely under
Definitely,
Paul Warne. Yeah. I think there was some doubts a couple of weeks ago when they dropped a couple of points. Another loss against Barnsley, and then sort of drawing at home to Charlton. Losing to Charlton. It wasn't looking so good, but in the past few matches, they managed to pick things up a little bit. So, yeah, looking good for Derby, I think, in second place at the moment.
Yeah, there's a few more games to spin through from the weekend, and another team it's looking good for is Peterborough. 5 on the spin now for Dan Ferguson's side. They beat Burton 3-1, and you mentioned assists. It was an assist for Johnson Clark-Harris and a goal. Do you know how many minutes he achieved a goal and an assist in when he came on?
No. But he came on pretty late. He came on pretty late, didn't he?
Yeah.
Let's say 10 minutes.
Oh, 7 minutes
pretty
for
impressive.
A goal and an assist. They've scored 10 goals in 3 games now, Peterborough. So that high-scoring, free-flowing football that Dan Ferguson is known for, it's sort of come back, hasn't it, after a really rough stretch. And they're well back a month, so up to 4th now, above obviously your beloved Barnsley, and 3 points behind Bolton, just 4 points off the automatics, and they do have a game in hand, as do Barnsley though as well. So an interesting one. See, what do you make of that? It's a great result and a sort of a really, really great bit of form that Peterborough are on.
Yeah, massive result for Peterborough, and good to see Clark-Harris on the score sheet. We spoke at sort of around the January
first
time.
Goal since December is worth mentioning. So.
Yeah, well, it was rumoured with a move away in the January window. That didn't materialise to anything, so he's ended up staying at Peterborough. I'm not quite sure Peterborough entirely want him there, but when you've got a player of that calibre, you can't not use him, really.
Yeah.
So it's good to see, although he's coming off the bench with just a few minutes of the game left, it's good to see him making an impact, goal and assist in that short space of time. But yeah, pretty great result, I think, for Peterborough, not only in terms of the actual game, but in terms of the table. As I said, shoots them up to 4th place, and they themselves have another big game this Saturday. It's becoming rather juicy. I think this Saturday is going to be lots of games to look out for.
Definitely.
But yeah, in terms of the game, Burton a pretty solid side under Patterson. I know they're in a bit of a precarious position, but things do seem to be on the up under Martin Patterson. I won't be too concerned about them. But yeah, I think it's massive for Peterborough, just like the other teams, just to keep winning, just to keep sort of ticking on. Good to see Knight on the score sheet as well. Good defender in the league. But yeah, I think it's a great result for Peterborough, both in terms of the game and the league position as well.
Definitely. We will touch on Burton as we go, sort of like after the break. We'll go through that relegation battle, have another little look at that. The other team in the top 5, obviously the league leaders, Portsmouth, a goalless draw at Blackpool, a really good home record that Blackpool have, and I feel like that's probably the thing to pick out of this. They've not lost at home since November in the league. They've lost a couple in the cup against Forest and obviously Peterborough in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, but in the league they're sort of formidable at Bloomfield Road. So that one, it's an interesting one because Portsmouth, they were playing against 10 men for most of the game. Jordan Rose sent off for the first time in his career, I believe, just before half-time. That has been rescinded since. An elbow it was given for, but it's been rescinded. It was a shocker of a decision, a really, really shocking decision. But on the result itself, goalless draw, as we've said, and a couple of drop points you have to say for Portsmouth. Bear in mind they've been playing against 10 men for so long.
Yeah, massively. I think it's a better result for Blackpool than it is. Portsmouth just puts Blackpool 4 points away from Stevenage in 6th place in terms of sort of league standings as things stand. But for Portsmouth, it shows that they're not just an unbeatable force. You know that they didn't lose, but they're drawing, which means it shows that it's possible that they can drop points, I guess. But yeah, solid point I think for Blackpool, and to do so with the whole of the second half and a couple of minutes in the first half with 10 men as well. I think it's a great result for Neil Critch's side. Really, pretty like you, I agree. I think that the red card was very harsh, and so rightly so has been rescinded.
Yeah, I'm glad it's been rescinded.
Yeah, it means Jordan Rhodes is back for Blackpool. Obviously, we know been so important for them this season, and back available for the squad for the next game. So, yeah, not too much to talk about really in this game, but I think the main talk about is that red card, which now doesn't count towards anything. So, not really talking point.
There's never much to pick out from a goalless draw, is there? But so the fact that Portsmouth have dropped points is certainly interesting, but they do remain top. Most importantly, they are 5 points clear now of Derby. The other game then that we're going to pick out is the team actually Blackpool will play tomorrow night on Tuesday. Northampton, they faced Cambridge, Garry Monk's first game in charge, and he got a point, 1-1, their first point after 4 losses in a row. Though, to give them credit, the 4 teams they played was Bolton twice, Peterborough and Stevenage. So you sort of look at that and you go, you probably don't expect them to pick up any points from that. But Garry Monk got his account underway with a point against Northampton. What do you sort of make of that? Anything to pick out from the game and Garry Monk sort of get his account underway immediately?
Yeah, I think he spoke after the game that it's too early for his fans to expect the world from his team. I think that's pretty fair enough. You know, you mentioned it ends a run of 4 successive defeats. I think the point is a pretty solid result, really, and every point counts when you are a side like Cambridge in the position that Cambridge are, really now just 5 places above the relegation zone. But it's a point gained rather than 2 point drops. And Kachunga getting the early goal as well. I think they'd be annoyed slightly with the equaliser came in the 82nd minute. So they managed to sort of get that early goal within the first 15-20 minutes, and then to see it out all the way until just after the 80th minute. I think they'll be disappointed with that one. But no, that being said, a draw is a solid result against the Northampton side, who are in a pretty good sort of position in the league table. They've got a pretty good squad. So I won't be too disheartened, really, if I was a Cambridge fan. I think overall in terms of Monk's first game, I think a draw is about right.
Definitely, I'd agree with that. I think it's sort of a springboard to build on, aren't they? They've got Lincoln actually on Tuesday night, which we will talk about the other side of a quick break. But before we get to that break, just to sort of run through the results for anyone who hasn't seen them from the games on Saturday. Charlton with a 3-2 win against Carlisle. Oxford 2-1 winners against Cheltenham. Shrewsbury 2-1 against Port Vale. They still can't get a win, can Darren Moore. Wycombe 2-1 at Reading. Wigan with a 1-0 win against Leyton Orient, which is probably the surprise of the other games. And in another surprise, Stevenage 0, Fleetwood 0. So that they are the other results from the week. Anything to pick out from that, Seb, actually, before we dash off?
Not really, but you wanted to give a bit of a shout for Connor Wickham at Charlton.
Oh yes, exactly.
Yeah, they got
Go on.
No,
They signed him They signed him as a free agent, didn't they? They brought him in. He was sort of trained with them the week before. Nathan Jones was talking about, and he's another option up front, a bit of more depth. Obviously, as an understudy, I guess to Alfie May, a very different player, but he came on as a substitute. Charlton 7 games unbeaten. Obviously, I have to mention that as the Nathan Jones fan club over here. So he's an interesting.
Score, yeah,
no, he didn't score. He missed an overhead kick, which was quite entertaining. It's a weird signing in that he's been one of the people I've had sort of on like free agent watch lists all season, really, and he's finally been picked up by a League One team, which is was the destination for him. It's interesting that is Charlton. He is nothing more than a bench option, really, realistically. Do you sort of agree with that, Seb? I think it's that's it. It's just a bit of depth and a bit of squad depth looking towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Charlton already have sort of 2 good options up top in Kanu and May. And I think what you just said there, it's just,
and they both scored as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's just another option to come off the bench. I know they've got Freddie Ladapo, but Wickham is a different option to Ladapo, and then if needs be, then can bring off Kanu and May as we get towards that business end of the season, really. So yeah, I think it's a pretty smart signing, really. And I know we had a spell at Forest Green. Was that last season or was that earlier on this season?
Last season. He's not been anywhere this season. Yeah. It's his first like game of the season.
Bit of a blur, really. But yeah, a solid signing. Sort of he'll come off the bench and ruffle a few feathers amongst defenders. So I guess it really gives Alfie May a chance to just not having to always complete 90 minutes. As we get to lots of consecutive games in a short space of time. So yeah, a good signing for Charlton, but no more than a bench player. I agree with you there. Yeah,
definitely. That's it. I mean, it's a far cry from the Connor Wickham that was scoring goals in the Premier League for Crystal Palace, but a different option, really different from Alfie May and Ladapo even. So we will touch on the relegation battle, the other side of a quick ad break, as well as looking ahead to Tuesday night's games. Welcome back, everyone, to the League One podcast here with the lower league look. We'll now pivot. We've looked back across the weekend. We'll pivot now to looking ahead before we have a quick dash through some of the games to pick up on the relegation battle. No one in the bottom 7 won at the weekend. Carlisle, some 16 points adrift. So I guess we can wave goodbye already for them. Maybe slightly harsh, but off they go. There's a 5-point gap between Cheltenham, who's sitting 21st, and safety, which is Burton. So that 5-point gap, I think, will become important. And then it's 7 points off safety for Fleetwood and Port Vale. It's sort of it's still a mess down there, isn't it? It's a really messy situation. A lot of teams still down there. 18th, 19th and 20th, which is Reading, Cambridge and Burton. They're all only 5 points clear of relegation. So any of those 3 could be sucked into the spots below them if a team in that relegation zone can sort of pick up a bit of steam. And yeah, it's a messy situation. Do you make anything of it? Do you see anyone in that relegation zone getting out of the relegation zone?
I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I think Cheltenham would be my ones to get out. Although when I said this last time, I said Cambridge would be the ones to drop in their place.
And now they've got Garry Monk.
Yeah, they've got Garry Monk. So that's a real test of my predictions, really. I want Cheltenham to survive because I'm a big fan of Darrell Clarke. I think when he came in, they were really struggling, and he's what he's done for the club cannot go under the radar, really. Whether I think they can quite do enough, I'm really not quite sure. With sort of 10 games left of the season, I'm really not quite sure. Yeah, I think it'll just have to say that it is. Yeah, with Carlisle, Port Vale, Fleetwood, and Cheltenham. Yeah,
as boring as it is, I'm struggling to see movement in that. Cheltenham, one of the teams that aren't playing in midweek, but there are 10 games on Tuesday, the 12th of March. I'll let you. What's your pick of the games, Seb? Which one have you keeping your eye on?
Pick of the games, I think would be after the ones that's on TV. Bolton, Oxford. So as things stand in the league table, that's third versus seventh. But Oxford are only 1 point away from the playoff spot, and Bolton are only 1 point away from the automatic spot. So it's crucial, really. Oxford are still a good side, but Bolton will have the advantage given they are at home. A lot of their fluke results, as I said before the break, have come away from home, really. So I think they'll be happy that they're at. I was going to say the Reebok, but it's not called that anymore, is it?
The DW. Isn't it the
yeah.
It's the Tough Sheet.
That is it. Yeah,
you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Because it was Rico and then DW and then University of Bolton, and now it's the Tough Sheet.
Yeah. Well, they'll be happy they're at home, is what I'll say. just to say myself. Yeah, they'll be happy that they're at Tough Sheet Stadium rather than away from home. But for me, that's my big tie. The one to watch in terms of the 10 matches that are on midweek. Actually, there's 11. There's one on Wednesday as well. Peterborough Stevenage as well on Wednesday.
Oh, right. Okay. Admittedly, I did miss the Wednesday one. So that makes a little bit more sense of why there's a few teams missing.
But that also... Yeah, that also I think will be a big game as well.
Well, we'll come to that. We will come to that. We'll have a look at the games on Tuesday. The one I've got my eye on is the one I'm going to, which is Lincoln against Cambridge. Garry Monk's first away game since joining Cambridge, of course. Lincoln looking to go 12 games unbeaten, and my stat for that, it'd be the first time they've gone 12 games unbeaten. It'd be their longest unbeaten run in League One if they can manage it. The last time they went 12 games unbeaten, I beg your pardon, was in 2017, which is in League Two. They went 17 games unbeaten, actually. So some going to sort of beat that. Cambridge haven't beaten a top half side since December the 16th. They beat Blackpool. So Lincoln up in 9th now. I think it's an interesting one looking at that. If Cambridge can't beat teams in the top half, Lincoln can't lose at the minute, 11 games unbeaten. So maybe something's going to give there. And Garry Monk's sort of that impression, first away game.
Yeah, but it's all going in Lincoln's favour based on what you've just said.
It has, well, so far, but it's the commentator's curse or the statistician's curse that it'll all go wrong.
Now you said all this now, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But no, I am looking forward to it just to sort of see what Garry Monk's team sets up like in person. Looking forward to that. And Lincoln are playing some lovely, lovely football at the minute. And Michael Scabala's really got that team energised, and they're always a joy to watch, I think. I've not seen a boring Lincoln game I missed the Stevenage game, you see. I've not seen a boring Lincoln game for a little while now.
Well, I definitely saw an entertaining one on Saturday as well. So.
Definitely. You saw all the goals. They've used all the goals up. That's the worry, isn't it? If you are an imp. So, interesting there. A couple of the other games. Derby versus Reading. I sort of look at that as it should be sort of a really free-flowing game. Reading are only 5 points clear of the relegation zone, so they've got something on the line there. And Derby obviously looking to hold on to the automatics and remain in touching distance to Portsmouth. So a lot riding on that one as well.
Yeah, I think Reading are better than what we sometimes see them for. Really, I know they're a little bit inconsistent at times, but. They do pick up some good wins, and that's probably what's pushed them out of the sort of the bottom four. We know that they've had so many off the field troubles, if you like, this season. But in terms of on the pitch, Ruben Sellers has done a great job of making sure that they're not at risk of any relegation. I know that they're not out of it as such, but there's 5 points between them and the bottom four. And there's also two other clubs on the same points as them. So it would be I'd be very surprised if they were eventually dragged into it. But what job Ruben Sellers has done, there's still some quality players in that side, really. So it would be a write-off, as some people might see, in terms of playing Derby away. But having said that, I can't really see past, as much as it pains me to say, I can't really see past a Derby win, really, at home at Pride Park.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
In the form that they're in, I think Reading will not be sort of a walkover. There'll be a good challenge. But I can't see anything past the Derby win.
I feel like Reading are one of those teams. They're always better than the league table suggests, and they have been all season.
Absolutely.
Sort of performance-wise. Maybe just the results haven't been there as consistently as they've needed. But I'd be shocked, really, really shocked if they had any sort of trouble towards the end of the season. And a team that will have trouble towards the end of the season is Port Vale, obviously in the relegation zone. This one, another huge game because they're playing Leyton Orient, and this is one I think is sort of a theme in this round of fixtures. There's no real games of teams playing each other who are in similar positions, but there's lots of games where it's someone at the top versus someone at the bottom, or someone chasing one thing against someone chasing another. And this is another example of that. Leyton Orient, 2 1-0 losses in a row. They're down to 10th and 7 points off the playoffs. So I guess it's sort of now or never in terms of making sure they stay in touch with the playoffs, with Lincoln and Blackpool and Oxford sort of pulling away a little bit from them. Port Vale 7 points off safety, 12 games without a win for them, and they've not won in 2024. It's a must-win. Are we getting towards must-win territory? I'll ask you that. Are we getting towards must-win territory for Darren Moore?
Yeah, I'd take. Yeah, given the results under tennis so far, have been shocking. Really, I think we are getting towards that must-win era. Given their league place and given other sides around them, not necessarily always getting the results, but certainly performance-wise, that they're doing much better than Port Vale are. Really, what I would say is I think Leyton Orient have dipped off in the past couple of weeks in terms of results, losing to Bristol Rovers and Wigan in the last 2. Before that, they had beaten Blackpool and Oxford. So, sort of beaten 2 sides amongst that playoff race, but then sort of lost to 2 sides sort of in that mid-table position. So, a bit inconsistent for Leyton Orient. If there was a time to take advantage, that would be now. So, in terms of things weighing in Port Vale's favour, maybe that's something. But it's definitely a must-win for Port Vale. Whether they can or not, I'm really not quite sure. I'm sure Sam, the Thursday co-host, will definitely not want a Vale victory. But I'm sure Orient will want to come into this one off and try and improve on the 2 successive 1-0 defeats, as you mentioned before. That
they need to start picking up points themselves if they want to stay in touch with that playoff race. The other stat, just to mention before we move past this one, the last 36 points available for Port Vale in those 12 games, they've picked up just 3. So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. That's why they're where they are. They just aren't picking up points, and that it needs to sort of turn around now. Darren Moore's not had that impact, at least instantly, at Port Vale. He needs to sort of come up with an impact sooner rather than later, because the situation gets too dire otherwise, doesn't it? They're playing, obviously, Leyton Orient tomorrow. They've got Oxford on Saturday, another difficult game against a team chasing the playoffs, and then it's Burton after that. That becomes a really important game. But they've got some difficult fixtures between now and the end of the season. Peterborough, Bolton, Bristol Rovers isn't an easy game, I don't think, in a couple of weeks. So they're playing teams that are obviously above them in the table, and they're playing teams that they're in decent form. So a difficult one there. We will talk about Peterborough and Stevenage, the Wednesday night game that sort of evaded my attention as I was looking at Tuesday night. The other games on Tuesday before we do is Carlisle hosting Barnsley, Fleetwood against Bristol Rovers, Northampton against Blackpool. I mean, that's quite an interesting game there. 2 mid-table teams, isn't it? Obviously, Blackpool a bit further up. Portsmouth, top of the table against Burton, Shrewsbury, Exeter, and Wycombe versus Wigan. All the W's down there. So, well, what do you make of your game actually away at Carlisle before we talk about the big one on Wednesday?
It'll be a tough one. I think Carlisle came to Oakwell and sort of caught us all by surprise. I think they ended up winning. I know that they started the game really well and got an early goal, but I think they ended up winning.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think it was back in November or something like that. So it'll not be easy. I know they are down there.
In January, Barnsley won 2-1. Carlisle scored in the 7th minute, but Herbie Kane scored an 86th-minute penalty.
Yeah, I remember.
Don't be too negative. You did win.
No, I'm. That basically, I remember we just started awfully, and I just remember them getting an early goal, and so in my mind we lost, but we didn't. So
you always win when you go 1-0 down, though, don't you? Apart from on Saturday.
Yeah, except from Saturday. Yeah. That's another little dig there, Jamie. Won it, you know.
We've got to get them in. We've got to get them in.
Well, yeah, but no, Carlisle. They'll be fighting for their lives, really. I know we've said it that they are done and dusters, but it's in terms of sort of the atmosphere around the playing squad, they'll not think that. They'll give themselves every chance of surviving until it's mathematically impossible, really.
Yeah.
They'll keep going until the fat lady sings, as a phrase goes. So they'll be hard, I think, but. Yeah. I think we've got the quality, and I think given our past 2 results, I think it's a good opportunity to bounce back and hopefully travel back from Cumbria with all 3 points.
That's a phrase I've not heard in a long while, so I'm a
it's
big
not
fan
over till the fat lady sings.
Exactly. So the next game, the final game actually that we'll talk about on the podcast, is Wednesday night on TV again. Peterborough against Stevenage. High scorers against low scorers. You mentioned in the first half that Peterborough had scored 10 goals in 3 games. Stevenage have scored 2 goals in 5 games. They drew 0-0 against Fleetwood. Before that, 0-0 against Lincoln. They beat Cambridge and Wycombe by a single goal on both occasions, and then a 1-0 loss against Derby. So, I mean, top scorers against no scorers, really, there. And it's a huge, huge game. I think Steve Evans is got a touchline ban for that one. I think he's picked up too many yellow cards. I know he picked one up against Lincoln, so on the TV, but no Steve Evans. I'm sure they'll cut to him in the crowd plenty.
We can't miss him,
that one?
Can't miss him.
A huge game. It's 4th versus 6th. That's really ticking me. Peterborough 4 points off the automatics, and Stephen is just 1 point above 7th place. So a lot riding on it.
Yeah, a massive game at the top of League One, really. Stevenage, not in great form in terms of recent results, not scoring many as you said there, really. But they'll see Peterborough as an opportunity, I think. They're only just sitting in that last playoff spot. Are Stevenage, so they'll want to get back on form and make sure they don't lose the spot that they're in currently, because I think they'll be more than happy with 6th place in the league. But they'll do everything they can to not lose that position that they are currently in. But Peterborough will want to push even further and try and push for that automatic spot in 2nd place, replacing Derby, which they can't do tomorrow, but they can get within 1 point of doing so if they win on Tuesday night. So massive game, 2 good squads going head to head to each other. Peterborough are at home as well. I hope it's just entertaining. I'm going to be boring and put my Barnsley hat on and say I want a draw, a 0-0 draw.
You want the Stevenage win, surely?
Well, yeah, I do want to see.
You don't want Stevenage to catch you up. That's the.
True, yeah, but then there's still that risk.
I think it's Peterborough. I think Peterborough are going to win this game 2-1, 2-0. I wouldn't. I know Stevenage sort of play that sort of football where there is. It's hard to play against. That's just they suffocate teams, really.
Yeah.
And it's always difficult to play against when it's a high scoring team like Peterborough. If you're sort of stopping their attacking outlet, then it becomes difficult for them to play their game. So it's one of those that tactically is really interesting. 2 sort of completely opposed views of football, with Darren Ferguson sort of we'll score 7 if they score 6, and Steve Evans will score 1 and stop them from scoring. I think it's an interesting game. It really is.
Yeah, I want a draw, because if Steve Evans win, then and we don't win, then they're within 3 points of us. So then not only will our top 2 position be in jeopardy, our top 6 position will be in jeopardy. So that's why I just want a 0-0 or a 1-1 would be happy. But yeah, it's becoming very tight. League One is great this season, both at the top and the bottom. Really, it's very entertaining. But it does mean that
everything's sort of taking shape, isn't it? And it's really sort of took shape nicely. And there's lots to fight for still, with 9-10 games to go.
But that being said, there'll be still lots of twists and turns, really, before we get to the final game of the season, which this season, of course, is the end of April. But there'll be lots to play for, really. And it's exciting. It's an exciting league,
definitely,
really, both at the top and the bottom. But I think the bottom will stay as it is. The top, I'm undecided. But ask me next week, and I'll come back with a definite answer.
We hope that there'll be some twists and turns before we come back next Monday. That will do us for this week. Thank you all for listening. You can listen along on Thursday for the preview show ahead of the week. And Callum, I think Sam's away this week. I think I'm stepping in this week, actually, to take over Sam's spot. So double podcast duty for me this week. So if you've not heard enough from me just yet, don't worry, because you've got another hour of me on. Yes, you will have heard enough by Thursday. So thank you to you, Seb, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back same time, same place next week to review another round of League One fixtures.